Coming up next on Arizona Horizon, a closer look at the Trump administration's talk of eliminating federal funding for Head Start. Also tonight, an investigation into evictions of tenants accused of being involved in criminal activity. And a new book chronicles 111 places in Phoenix that are not to miss. Those stories and more next on Arizona Horizon.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Arizona PBS, members of your public television station.
Good evening and welcome to Arizona Horizon. I'm Ted Simons. The U.S. Supreme Court today heard arguments over President Trump's court order to end birthright citizenship. The case includes the administration's complaints that lower court judges have exceeded their authority by temporarily blocking the president's order. But at its core, the case is about birthright citizenship as enshrined in the Constitution.
The original meaning of the Citizenship Clause extended citizenship to the children of former slaves, not to people who are unlawfully or temporarily present in the United States. The merits arguments we are presenting to the lower courts are compelling. For those reasons, we ask the court to grant the applications.
That position was challenged by Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson.
The real concern, I think, is that your argument seems to turn our justice system, in my view at least, into a catch-me-if-you-can kind of regime from the standpoint of the executive, where everybody has to have a lawyer and file a lawsuit in order for the government to stop violating people's rights.
Overall, the High Court appeared troubled over the power of a single district judge to freeze executive action nationwide, but there was also concern over the legality of the president's executive order. Other headlines: Capitol Hill, the budget is still being worked on by the Republican majority in the House. A major sticking point is increasing state and local tax exemptions, which are referred to as SALT.
I think everyone will say it was productive and that we are moving the ball forward. Everyone has known that the SALT issue is one of the big ones that we have to resolve. It's one of the key pieces of this equation to sort of meet the equilibrium point that everybody can be satisfied with. Not everybody's going to be delighted with every provision in a bill this large, but everyone can be satisfied, and we're very, very close to that.
At this point, though, conservative Republicans are very much not satisfied with the overall bill, which they say will add too much to the deficit. And in perhaps the most consequential headline of the day, a baby boy with a rare genetic disorder made medical history by becoming the first patient of any age to receive custom gene editing treatment. The boy, now 9.5 months old, is home from the hospital. He's doing well and meeting developmental milestones. The doctors involved in the procedure say that the results show the potential for gene editing to help people with thousands of other rare genetic diseases. Head Start is a federally funded program aimed at helping low-income children and families. The Trump administration initially considered eliminating all funding to Head Start, but those funding cuts are no longer part of the president's budget plan. Advocates for Head Start programs, though, they're still worried. And joining us now is Arizona Head Start Association Board President and Head Start Program Director, Eve Del Real. Welcome to Arizona Horizon. Good to have you here.
Thank you.
And thanks for bringing the gifts here from a couple, some Head Starters, some artwork from Head Starters.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I want to start off by acknowledging that we're celebrating our 60th anniversary and providing high-quality services throughout the U.S. And in light of that, we thought you needed a dinosaur.
Well, we got a dinosaur, and I thank you so much for that. Give me a better definition. I kind of give a little bit of a definition here, but a better definition of Head Start. What is it? It's been around 60 years. What does Head Start do?
So Head Start is a high-quality early education program that provides services to children and families. We consider it to be one of the original 2-gen models that not only works with the child, but it's also working with the family, and it integrates early education, family services, and health services, which then creates this great environment for not only the child to thrive, but for the family as well. And it specifically targets and works with vulnerable families.
Yes, and how many kids in Arizona, how many kids and families involved?
17,000 in Arizona, and we know that well over 750,000 throughout the U.S.
And this is what, from infancy to age, what, 5?
0 to 5, yes.
0 to 5, okay. Layoffs at the agency. Now, we've heard that the Trump administration now is backing off on any ideas of cutting, completely eliminating funding. But you never know. But it sounds like it's safe for now. RFK Jr., Health and Human Services Secretary, I think this week testified that there were no plans now to cut Head Start. That said, there have been layoffs at the agency. What are you experiencing?
Yeah, so there was a mass consolidation of regional offices that were assigned to Health and Human Services. So that had an impact on local Head Start programs because we now do not have an assigned local regional office that helps with the oversight. They were active partners for us. So not having that resource does create a few delays when it comes to payment and just other technical assistance that we typically would receive from the regional office.
Had there been funding freezes as well?
There were some funding freezes that were experienced initially, but as we're moving forward now with some of the additional supports that are being put in place, we're noticing a reduction, but there's still some inconsistencies when it comes to that.
You mentioned some delays from regional offices, some of which don't even exist anymore.
Correct.
Providers, what's that doing to providers?
Well, it definitely creates a space of concern, because we're unsure as to what to expect. It has an impact on our families as well as they hear different things about whether the Head Start program will continue or not. And it's just a time of a lot of contention and concern for most Head Start programs.
Is it time for a lot of confusion as well? Because again, RFK Jr. testifying this week says he doesn't know why there have been funding delays. I mean, it's one thing to have funding delays. To not know why, it's got to bring up some uncertainty.
Correct, and that's really what it is. It's the space of uncertainty for us, but what I can say is that at least on behalf of the state of Arizona, grantees still continue to provide services at a high level of quality and continue to be very committed to the service despite that. We're doing the best that we can considering the space that we're in right now.
Yeah. Other cuts to non-Head Start services, but that you deal with and you work in conjunction with these sorts of things. What are you seeing out there?
Well, we're seeing just, again, an overall concern and delay with other things that families could utilize, correct? So, we've been talking about how reductions to SNAP might impact our families. Our families are highly dependent on SNAP support, so if that was to get reduced, again, that also has a negative impact on our family and our families and their ability to support their families effectively.
It does sound like food stamps are on the chopping block as far as this latest Republican proposal is concerned.
Right, so when you tie that into Head Start, again, we provide nutritional services. Families are going to heavily rely on us and our ability to continue providing services to fill the gap in any of those reductions.
What about educational services? How are they affected?
Well, I would say that the biggest impact is on the workforce because, again, we're relying on a highly qualified workforce. And this uncertainty, again, I think positions staff to reconsider, right, if this is the area that they want to pursue. But it has an impact overall because we have, again, a workforce that's uncertain,
Yes.
that's concerned, but they still move forward as best as they can with providing a high-quality experience for children.
You've mentioned, 60 years?
Yes.
Yes, 60 years. How has Head Start, from what you understand and what you've seen, how has Head Start grown and developed over the years?
Well, there's decades of research demonstrating the impact of the program. And
Yes.
what we've seen is that as the program has expanded, it's just had a phenomenal experience in helping break those cycles of poverty for many families. The experiences that we've provided in early education have served as national models for early education for many states that have moved forward with developing preschool programs. And then I think overall the socioeconomic impact for the family in general. We have families who have been able to break that generational cycle of poverty and to move on and to provide more, in the long term.
So with that in mind, we've talked about things. It seems uncertainty, confusion, not sure about things is the key issue here. Is that your major concern? What is your major concern right now?
It's just ensuring that services are in place because we recognize that should the Head Start program get eliminated in the state of Arizona, that's 17,000 children that would lose a service in an environment where childcare services are already limited. It would create a childcare crisis. We recognize that here in the state of Arizona, there's a huge wait list for childcare subsidy and support. There's a wait list of about 4,000 children. So if the Head Start program was eliminated, that's an additional 17,000 children that would hit that wait list.
And real quickly, is there any indication of the state legislature filling in some of the gaps should Head Start get a little wobbly?
That's something that we're still in the process of discussing. But again, there's limited resources. It's a challenging time again.
Yeah. Eve Del Real, again, Head Start Association, great work on your, thank you for the gifts. They're wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Saturday at 11:30 on Arizona PBS.
On Cool the Midwife.
You're an original thinker. That's why I fell in love with you, Roger Noble.
There's been a fire at Arbery House with mothers to be there.
Hello again, Paula. Come on, honey. Let's get you inside.
If you're looking for us to take her in, the answer's no. You are about to take your vows. Do you feel ready?
I feel as ready as I can be.
Sunday night at 7 on Arizona PBS.
Crime-free housing policies are fueling evictions across Arizona, often without police involvement, criminal charges, or tenant protections. A new two-part investigative piece by the Arizona Republic finds, among other things, that landlords can evict tenants for alleged criminal activity, even without an arrest or investigation. To learn more, we welcome Hannah Dreyfus, investigative reporter at the Arizona Republic and azcentral.com. This is your story. You're the reporter on this one. Great work. Thank you so much for joining us here. A crime-free lease addendum is the focus. What is that?
Sure. It's something that most Arizonans have probably never heard of. What the crime-free lease addendum is, it's a document that is actually in most rental lease agreements for apartments across Arizona. And what it does, or the idea behind it, is to disincentivize tenants from getting involved in crime. And most tenants, when they sign it, they're saying, I have no intention to do crime in this apartment, no problem. I'll sign on the dotted line. What they don't realize is what it actually does is that it enables landlords to expand the definition of what they consider crime, so that things that wouldn't necessarily fall under that category can all of a sudden be subject to eviction.
That was going to be my next question. When you say crime, how is crime defined and who defines it?
That's an excellent question. So the crime-free lease addendum gives landlords the power to determine what is criminal activity. Now, usually you would think that law enforcement and the courts need to be involved in what's considered criminal activity. But what you see with the crime-free lease addendum is it gives a landlord the opportunity to say, I think that what happened here is a crime, and I'm going to issue you an immediate eviction because of it.
What about something like making too much noise? I mean, could that be considered a crime?
Yes. According to
Yes.
the crime-free lease addendum, they give very lax and broad definitions for what could fall under the category of criminal activity. In fact, people become responsible not only for their own behavior, but for the behavior of guests or affiliated persons on the property.
If an affiliated person or a guest, I mean, what if they do something and the tenant doesn't know that they've done this sort of thing? Is the tenant still?
Yeah, with the crime-free lease addendum, a tenant is still held responsible for activities that take place by guests, even if they don't know about it or could not have reasonably prevented it.
And not necessarily even on the property, correct?
Exactly. It also extends criminal activity to anywhere near the premises, which gives a really expansive definition of what could be considered a crime.
Interesting. And again, what kind of remedy does a tenant have in this kind of situation?
So tenants can fight an immediate eviction in court. However, the policy tends to target low-income and minority tenants who usually don't have the resources to hire themselves a lawyer and fight an immediate eviction notice. They also frequently don't know that they even can represent themselves in court.
Yeah.
When they get an immediate eviction notice, it's a 24-hour get out of your apartment notice.
I was going to say that when you said immediate eviction, it's like, whoa, this means you made too much noise, you're gone.
Exactly. One of the things that makes this type of eviction so harmful is that it is considered an immediate eviction. Once a landlord determines, and it can be independent of law enforcement, that a crime has taken place, they can issue a 24-hour notice for that person to get off the property. And frequently they don't even know that they have the opportunity to defend themselves in court.
So your investigation, and again, this is, before I get to that, state law. Where does state law fit into all this?
Sure. So there is an Arizona statute that says that people cannot commit crime on Arizona properties. And it does specify the same types of crime that are specified in the lease addendum. However, the lease addendum goes beyond what Arizona law says in terms of what's not allowed in the property and allows landlords a significant amount more discretion to determine what is and is not criminal activity.
And the lease addendum, state law, basically, they don't intersect?
They overlap, but the lease addendum takes it further than
Yes.
state law.
Yes. Where did this lease, as I read your story, this lease addendum kind of thing came from a former police officer, am I correct?
Yeah, exactly. This movement, which is now in hundreds of cities across the country, not just in Arizona, but all over the place, started and was born in Mesa, Arizona, by a now retired police officer named Officer Tim Zarek.
Yeah, and I think most people would say, you know, if you're a land, you don't want crime being committed on your property, you don't want your tenants involved with crime, but there's such a thing as due process that I would think would be at play here as well. I guess the bottom line is this working? Is crime being reduced in areas where these lease addendums are in force?
Sure, Ted. So we decided to tackle that question using data and actual analysis. What I did is an extensive effort of public records requests to cities across Arizona to find out which cities implement these policies, when they started implementing them, and then what we used is FBI crime statistics to analyze if these policies were actively, effectively reducing crime. And what we found out is they are not. These policies do not actually reduce crime. I think everyone can understand that you don't want crime on your rental property, but this finding has to make us question.
Yeah, and you mentioned people of color were targeted more than most?
That's another an analysis we did with the data. We looked at demographic data in places that do implement these policies, and we actually went down to the block by block level in 4 Arizona cities to see who is most likely to be subject to these policies. And we found that you're 2 times more likely to be a Black tenant to be targeted by these policies.
But it raises the question of whether or not any tenant in any property really even knows what everyone's looked through lease agreements and you look at them, your eyes start glazing and you just, where do I sign?
Yeah.
Especially if you're younger and you're not as experienced in these sorts of things. Do these folks even know these lease addendums exist?
Absolutely not. One of the families who I spoke to and featured in the story, the Johnsons, when they were signing their lease, they saw something in the agreement about not, dealing drugs from their apartment and not, having sex workers in their apartment. They're a family. They have 4 kids. They were like, of course, this doesn't apply to us. They had no idea what they were actually signing away was their right to due process if they were faced with an immediate eviction.
Yeah. Again, great work on this. But last question, I know that in your story, we talked about the person who came up with this idea. And one of the reasons behind the idea is that it frees law enforcement to take on more serious crime as opposed to the person who's making too much noise and these sorts of things. Did you find that in your research?
Well, that's actually a really interesting question. It does, what it does is it enables landlords to act in a law enforcement capacity. And that has a lot of problems because, an average citizen is not supposed to be implementing, criminal law. And so it kind of has a trickle-down effect of problems when you empower people who are not trained in criminal law enforcement to be doing that job. And in fact, it doesn't reduce crime on these properties. So even if you do see police officers attending to crime elsewhere, that doesn't necessarily mean that there's going to be less crime on these properties because of these policies.
Yeah. Hannah Dreyfus again, Arizona Republic, azcentral.com. Great work.
Thank you.
Good to have you here. Thanks for sharing. We appreciate it.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
I'm Amna Navaz. Tonight on the NewsHour, the U.S. Supreme Court weighs questions about birthright citizenship and judicial checks on presidential power. That's coming up at 6 on Arizona PBS.
There's a new book out that is being called A Travel Guide with Locals in Mind. The book is titled 111 Places in Phoenix That You Must Not Miss, and it dives into the heart of Phoenix to find its best-kept secrets, natural wonders, and inspiring people. Travis Swan Taylor, he's the author of this local travelogue. Good to have you here.
Thank you, Ted. Thanks for having me on.
Congratulations on the book. Why did you write this? This is an interesting idea. Where'd it come from?
It come from the publisher. It's a family-owned publishing company in Cologne, Germany. They have thousands of books. They have hundreds of books in the series for cities all over the world. Cologne's lucky number is 11. That would make for a very short book. So they added one to it. That's how they came up with 111.
Wow. I was going to ask why 100. I mean, 111. It's 111. I get that.
Right,
but
right.
It's from the publishing company.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
All right. How did you decide? I mean, 111 is a lot, so you probably didn't have to do too much winnow. But eventually, someone's got to go. How did you decide what went in and what didn't?
So the contents are very diverse, so geographically and topic. So you have a few restaurants, a few parks, a few of this and that. So that plays into the selection. The other is I've been to every single place in the book.
Yeah.
So, filtering through, what I think other people would like, what I like.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, let's take a look at some of these things, and I want to start with a silver service. This is a battleship silver service from the USS Arizona.
It is.
What are we looking at here?
So this is special to me. I served in the U.S. Navy, so when I found this was like fantastic. It's the formal silver service from the USS Arizona, and it was taken off the ship in January of '41 before the Arizona was sunk in Pearl Harbor. So they knew that war was impending, so they took the service off. So it was first put on the ship in 1919.
Wow.
So it was there for a very long time.
And that's at the Capitol Museum, is it not?
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like 60-something pieces, and it's all on display.
Isn't that something? All right, let's keep it moving here. We got Bernie the Robot. I think Bernie the Robot's like just a few blocks from here, right?
He is. I've met people who've worked downtown for decades and have never seen him. So, I also love that the address is 111 Monroe. So another reason I had to put him in
All
here.
right, well, you had to get that in there. There's an idea behind this, isn't there?
There is. So the sculptor, Doug Boyd, he found himself hiking the Sierra Nevada mountains, and he noticed all of a sudden that he was tied to his phone, using GPS, taking photos, instead of enjoying the beauty of the nature that he was in. So he thought, took it further, what if humans became robots, and then the robots discovered things that humans had abandoned. So this is kind of his message to people to put down the devices once in a while, connect with other humans in nature.
If a robot can read a book, you can read a book.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay. We got Licks Uptown Ice Cream. An ice cream show? What's this about?
Yeah, so that's my friend Janine. So the owner and flavor creator, Rich Dolan, is brilliant. His flavors that tie into childhood memories, strawberry quick or Nutter Butter, but then also flavors like fig and goat cheese, personal favorite.
My goodness.
But they're all lactose free.
Yeah, this is Uptown Ice Cream?
Licks Uptown Ice Cream.
Where's it located?
7th and 7th Avenue.
Melrose, is it the Melrose area?
Yeah.
Somewhere, okay, all right. Penske Racing Museum. We got Indy cars next. After ice cream, we go to Indy cars.
Yeah, so some of again, it's very diverse.
Yes.
So this is one of those places that you're not just going to happen upon. You have to know either someone tells you about it or you're going to buy a car from Penske. Some of these cars won the Indy 500, and they range from manufacturers like Ford to Porsche. And it's a very small museum. It's 2 stories. Number of race cars, engines, trophies.
Where located?
Great little find. Scottsdale.
In Scottsdale. Okay. All right. I know where this is. Our next is a saguaro. And it's that crested. That is iconic.
Yes, it really is.
Desert Botanical Gardens, right?
This is the Desert Botanical Garden. Yes, they have one. So this is a very rare saguaro. There's only one in about every 200,000 that are crested.
Yes.
I've only seen 3 since I've been here, and the garden has one.
Yeah.
So if you go, ask about it. It's
an iconic figure there. Yeah. All right, the last one is really interesting. It's Steven Spielberg's directorial debut, and that looks like this was where the Phoenix Theater. What's going on here?
Phoenix Theater Company. So they've been around for a very, very, very long time. So Spielberg, when he was 17. Debuted his very first film at what was then Little Phoenix Theater. And when you get to the theater, the box office, this hallway to the right, there's a big picture of Steven as we know him today, and it tells the story about how his first film was debuted there. And this hallway leading to the theaters, they light up red on performance night, so it's kind of a red carpet experience.
Yeah, yeah. And as far as Spielberg, you got like 3.5 minutes of a science fiction film from 1964. He was a kid.
Yeah, definitely. There are only that many, those few minutes that still exist. You can see them online. But they, you can sign later on, he put out Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Yeah. And if you see the footage from his original movie, you see some hints or nods that inspired
Interesting.
Close Encounters.
We've got about like 20 seconds left here. What do you want people to take from this book?
Go and explore your own backyard. That's what the book is for. It's like places that even locals might not know about. Enjoy it.
Good stuff. Congratulations on the book.
Thank you.
Travis Swan, again, 111 places in Phoenix that you must not miss. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
That's it for now. I'm Ted Simons. Thank you so much for joining us. You have a great evening.